Motion carries. We also have the February 28th, 2018 called meeting. Any additions or corrections to those meeting minutes? Do I have a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
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 Nay. Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We have the old and new business, real estate property reassessment 2018. Mr. Martin, I'll turn it over to you for the introduction.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'll defer to the Commissioner of Revenue to introduce our guest and introduce this topic.
Good evening. Mayor Rabel, Vice Mayor Cheatham, council members Mr. Martin and Mr. Williams. It is a pleasure that I introduce our assessor, Mr. Stephen Wampler, with the Wampler Eanes Appraisal Group Limited, to give you an update on the 2018 general reassessment. The Wampler Eanes Appraisal Group has been in business for some 20-plus years. They assess approximately 141,000 parcels a year. Over their years in business, they have assessed over 1.6 million properties. They serve 51 localities in Virginia and North Carolina and have experience in assessing residential, commercial, rural, waterfront, and income-producing properties, as well as mineral deposits, cell towers, golf courses, and mountain resorts. It's with great pleasure I introduce Mr. Wampler.
Mayor, council members, city manager, counselor, my pleasure to be here. I'm going to spread this out just a little bit. I've certainly enjoyed our relationship with the city of Franklin. I've been here about 12 years now, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity to work for the citizenry of the city of Franklin. All notices were mailed, as everybody pretty much knows, on Friday, February 26th. We started our hearing process this morning. We're going to continue through Friday. So far, we've have logged in about 42 appointments, and we've had 6 mail-in appeals. And of course, we're still taking appointments on a daily basis, and I encourage this gentleman to certainly make an appointment, come by and talk to us, and anybody else. Of course, some property owners have multiple parcels, as you well know, and the 42 appointments equates to a lot higher number of reviews and site visits. But overall, things seem to be going fairly good. Our sales study this go around included about 153 parcels, and these were sales through January 2018, and our ratios seem to be right at about 100%. As I think y'all had in your packets, the percentage of change right here. And the largest percentage, of course, was your Class 1, single-family urban. That went up about 2.94%. Your Class 3 multi-parcels, which are, these are your apartments, four units and larger, had an increase of about 7.68. Commercial industrial went down 0.05%. Class 5 properties, which were properties 20 to 99 acres, they had a 0.75% increase. And the ag land, 100 acres and up, actually went down 3.68, but there's only 4 parcels that are included in this property, and there's a large tract owned by International Paper, and we discovered some floodplain land on that, and that was the reason for that adjustment. But the overall taxable increase is looking at about 2.2. Now that increase is going into the hearing, so we'll make a few adjustments. We'll certainly make a few adjustments. Some will raise a few and lower a few. But that's what we're looking at right now going into the process. And compared back over the last, I think we went back through 16, 14, and even to 12, where you've had some negative numbers. This is the first time we've had some positive numbers.
All right, anybody have any questions for Mr. Wong?
Yes.
In layman terms, for the citizens who may be home listening to this, what is the general reason for the residential property increase?
It's just the sales that we've had. I developed a manual, this is all, of course, this is all public information. This has all the 153 sales in it, and it's just, that's our bread and butter. We're sort of like historians, we look at the market, and we've had some sales that are over the old assessed values.
Now, when you say sales, do you mean people selling their homes, moving from Franklin?
No, we're
Or sales, people purchasing homes in Franklin?
both.
So is this a sign of the assessments going up? Is this a sign of the city's growth, or?
I don't think it's a sign of growth, but, and we're seeing this trend not only here, we just went through about six sets of hearings this fall, and we're seeing increases, or not really increases, but we're not seeing a decrease. We're seeing more of a stable to maybe a little bit of plus market. Fauquier County, which is, of course, Northern Virginia, they had overall increase this time of 17%, though that was over a four-year cycle. But your two-year cycle, we're just seeing that 2% overall, and it is all taxable properties.
So it's hard to pinpoint a reason why, to tell a citizen who might ask, why did my property assessment go up?
Right, and
It's
what
going
we'll
to be
do,
hard to answer that.
we'll try to show him some comparable sales here in the city.
And when you say sales of a comparable house, I understand that, what it sold for. That's what
Correct,
you're
that's correct.
responding to.
And we've disqualified the foreclosures. There's still a few foreclosures here, but nothing like it has been in the past. At one point here, I think foreclosures were as high as, I believe 30% of this, 30% in 2014. So we're not seeing nearly that high number of foreclosures here in this 2-year cycle.
Now, 14 would have took us back closer to the housing crisis, wouldn't it? So I would think.
And that 14, that's going to go back to 2012. That would be that 2-year cycle in between that. But no, we're not seeing near the foreclosures we've seen in the past.
I'm just asking because our citizens, they're seeing lots of increases in a lot of areas.
Right, I understand.
Except for activities, no movies.
Right, I
Thank you
understand.
so much.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Other questions, comments from Mr. Wong?
I guess I guess you've got the data to back it up, but I'm just really surprised. I mean, I'm glad to see it. But I'm just really
I
surprised.
know your building went up.
Yeah, I know.
I reviewed it.
And I thought it was high to begin with.
Right, I
know. I just find it hard with the people that I know that sold homes in the city of Franklin and not gotten nearly what they were asking for or close to what assessment was, and they sold. And I just would have, just hearing from all that,
Right.
I would have thought there would have been another property that I'm familiar with. I just would have thought we'd had a little bit of a decrease.
Well, you had one rather large sale was one, I can't think of the apartment complex that just sold for $10.5 million. Of course, that's not residential, but I mean, that was a pretty hefty sale, which was a plus for
Here in
the
Franklin?
city.
Here in Franklin?
Yeah.
What apartment complex would that be?
Let me see. I have the tax map number, 15316A, I don't know, but we can certainly find that out, but yeah, that sold for 10.5 million. Dorchester, it was on Dorchester.
Dorchester sold?
One comment to elaborate on something that Steve referenced. I went back and looked, I had Commissioner Revenue shared with me. We've had to put in perspective, an increase of 2.5% overall taxable properties. This is not to say, and this is for the citizens as well, that everybody's property appreciated. This is a balancing, the average is what it
Right,
works out to be.
that's just arithmetic average.
Yeah, some people had depreciation, some had appreciation, And it varied by neighborhood, by areas, by type of property, as he just listed some of these. But over the residential, that doesn't mean every neighborhood and every property went up 2.5%. It's an average. Because I've heard from some who's went down and some who went up. One other thing I want to point out, even with the 2.5, and I'm certainly pleased to see that because it is a stabilizing, and it's the first positive trend we've seen in at least since 2010, right after the period of recession that the country and region and the locality suffered. But the depreciation during that period below values that were there prior to 2010 is cumulatively is almost 14%. So that puts it in perspective. In 2012 alone, it was a 9% drop. Then it was 4.4 in 14, and just under about 0.3% 2 years ago. So it was almost flat. But this is the first positive, which is an indicator that sales have improved, fewer foreclosures, forced sales. And when we say sales, these are non-forced sales. These are willing buyer, willing seller, the ones that have appreciated in value. So that's an encouraging sign, but still, we've got a ways to go to recover anywhere near what we had before 2010, excuse me. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that since Brenda went to the trouble of putting that together. And be glad to answer any other questions, but this is welcome news because we've had to struggle with declining property values overall, which make it difficult to maintain tax rates. The other thing that people shouldn't presume, this does not set the tax rate. That is a function of the budgeting process. This simply, in my layman's term of evaluating what it does, is value each property in relation to all the other properties. So some people who added on, this also includes some new construction.
It does.
Additions, outbuildings, anything anybody did to improve their property naturally is going to add to that property's value. And we've had some construction activity, more so in the last 2 years than we had in the 4 to 6 years prior. So that is one factor that helps. But some people had other changes to their property and that would have affected their values, some in a declining way. And also in the business community, we've had some enhancements and improvements, some renovations. All the building permit activity goes into this process as well, as provided by community development that goes through the commissioner's office and helps us set these values every 2 years. So just give you that background.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Sorry.
Do you look at price points to see, or do you just do all residential properties? In other words, do you distinguish between a $500,000 house and a $100,000 house, or is it all residential?
Oh, it's all residential.
Okay.
But it's a grading system that plays into that.
What do you mean by that?
Well, an average house is like say a 24 by 42 brick ranch. That's a C grade house. And then, a $500,000 house, you're gonna get up into an A type grade. That's just a industry standard of a grading system that, is used nationally.
What does that do to the appraisal?
Well, that bumps the rate up. See, we have to do, the software system set up just on a cost approach. And of course, we look at sales. We keep, massaging the market, looking at sales throughout the whole process. But we have to use this grading system as appraisers, to sort of classify the homes into those categories.
Because that would be interesting to see if the bigger homes in Franklin, from what I hear from real estate agents, is the bigger the home in Franklin, the less it sells for.
Right, that's true. That's true.
Where there's
But we have a lot of homes. I just looked through our sales study earlier. We have a lot of homes in the 200 to 300,000 category that are in this sales study right now.
But again, the condition of the home makes a huge difference. The age and condition and all of those are
it
factors
does.
as well. So some of the largest homes that are really older homes and maybe needing renovation wouldn't necessarily equate to an appreciating property value.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily talking about ones that are
I know,
depreciated.
but that's just saying that
I
clarification
understand.
to
I'm just
others.
Can I
trying
ask-
to get an understanding.
Can I ask a question? Again, I'm back to layman's terms. Who benefits by the higher assessments? Who stands to benefit as a result of the higher assessments?
Well, ultimately, it'd have to be the city or county. I mean, that's
City.
where they're right.
That's
Of
what
course,
I
you know, you'll set the tax rate.
Right,
Whether their
right.
assessments are high or whether they're low, you know, you'll.
So
you'll- and-
the assessments won't necessarily, unless, if I'm understanding correctly, unless someone is in the market to sell their home and they're using their assessment as a price point, that's the only way it could benefit a citizen or resident if they were trying to sell their home. Otherwise, the only one who benefits directly would be the city.
Right, and of course, nobody wants to pay taxes.
Yeah, but anyone who's selling their home, the first thing they'll tell you is they'll be really critical if their assessment is going to hurt their opportunity to sell.
And,
I
and
hear
and
that.
I had a lady in today, she was complaining her house was too low, but, you know, overall, the numbers, we're just not, the phones aren't ringing. We've had more appointments than we've had in the past, but, you know, like I mentioned earlier, we've only made 48 appointments plus the 6 pieces of mail. Of course, today's only Monday, but the phones aren't, you know, ringing off the hook.
But like Mr. Burgess was saying, there's people he knows that they're saying they're trying to sell their homes and they can't get what they're asking for them.
Right.
But yet, we're saying they're worth more money.
Well,
Kind of-
I'll say this, more people than not will tell you, if you ask them, that they won't sell it for what the city has it valued at. I hear that all the time.
Well, I would expect, you to support that position, considering
It doesn't
the
matter
one
to
who
me,
benefits is
again,
the
that's
city.
got nothing to do with the benefit to the city. The tax rate that's levied and the amount of tax that individual pay, that's the only thing, the assessment doesn't determine that. It's determining how much property X pays versus property Y versus property Z.
Right.
It's going to be determined by the rate, how much everybody pays. But it matters not to me which houses are valued higher or lower. I'm just glad to see overall the city's economic health is bolstered by having an appreciating property values rather than depreciating overall.
And I can only speak on some medium-cost homes. I know 2 people that have sold theirs, and they both have gotten exactly what they asked for in the last 6 months, which is right at the assessed value.
Well, I would encourage all citizens, if they have a question about it, make the appointment.
Absolutely.
Go
Come
down.
and see us, while we're
You know,
here.
make sure that you bring your information with you. Don't just come in there and, without being prepared. And being prepared means that you've done your homework. You've got your homework done. You've looked at it. You've got some comps that you can look at or whatever. And if you've made some improvements that are not visible, you need to, and you think your house is too low, you certainly can have it raised also. Some people want it raised, so.
If you're finished off the neighborhood.
I have a personal example of where somebody's paid well above what the assessed price was and was surprised when their tax assessment went to what they paid. And I'm like, okay, well, how do you,
the way it
let me help you
works.
figure that one. That was an easy one, but that was an
That
exception.
happens sometimes.
That was an exception. But anyway, anybody other questions? Again, Mr. Wampler, thank you. We appreciate
righty,
what
I
you're
certainly
doing.
thank-
And we do encourage citizens to make that appointment and go out and try to at least get the answers you're looking for, okay?
And again, thank you for letting us serve the citizenry of the city of Franklin for doing
Thank you very
the
much.
assessment. Thank you.
The next agenda item is the Power and Light Annual Report. Mr. Martin, you want to kick
Yes,
out?
sir. As you know, we've been scheduling different departments to come in periodically and give updates to the city council. And we're doing this outside of the budgetary process for a couple of reasons. One, so that the community can hear what's going on with the individual departments and some of the initiatives and facts and so forth. And so tonight, we're blessed to have Mark Bly representing the Power and Light Department, and you've already received his PowerPoint presentation, and so I'll defer to Mr. Bly to go through it.
Thank you.
I would like to mention, Mark will pinpoint this before he starts. Some of the data, Mark was, I guess his department, not Mark, but his department was limited in terms of technology and ability to produce a lot of the data and things that we're seeing in the different departments until our new software system went into place last year, last fiscal year. And that's one reason some of the data you'll see is just showing a current fiscal year through January and up, some of it updated through February. Going forward, he'll be able to accumulate this data annually on fiscal year basis and report it to the city. And I think that'll be very helpful to us in keeping up with some of these items. So with that intro, Mark.
Good evening. I'll try to make this short and sweet. First thing that seems to be on everybody's mind is power costs, so I put that in as one of the first slides in the presentation. As some of you may know, Franklin Power and Light purchases power through a 7-member jurisdiction association known as Virginia Municipal Electric Association, and also purchase a small amount of hydropower from the Southeastern Power Administration, and which is through the Department of Energy. And we also generate some peaking power from our owned resources. The VMEA new power contract with Dominion began January 1st, 2011, and is a 20-year contract. Power costs are based on Dominion's cost-based rates for capacity, energy, and transmission. Electric Department wholesale power costs are projected to increase 6.6% for FY19. However, as I've said before, final power costs projected or for FY19 won't be known until June 1st or slightly thereafter. I would note, however, that at this point in time, we're not proposing a retail rate increase. Of course, all that is subject to change too once we know what our final power costs will be. Just as a note, from July 1st, 2017 to January 31st, 2018, to compare the energy that we have had to purchase compared to what we have billed, the total purchases that we've made in that time period was 89,403,524 kilowatt hours, and of that amount, we billed 84,083,177. Just also to note that of this amount for the fiscal year to date, approximately 6.3% of the energy purchased is not billed and is not recovered and is known as system losses.
At what point can we ask questions?
Would you like for us to ask questions now, or would you like for us to wait till after you finish? Which would you prefer?
I'd prefer if you waited till the end,
Okay,
but
Okay.
you're
That's
the
fine.
boss, I just work here.
request is approved. We'll wait till the end to ask a question.
Okay, thanks, sir. Of course, we're not directly affected by any legislation that you may read in the paper or see on the television that occurs in Richmond. However, our power supplier, which ultimately is Dominion, is. So that can have a direct adverse effect on our wholesale power costs. So far, legislation this year seems to have been pretty easy on us, and we don't expect anything adverse to come from out the legislation action. There has been discussion of the federal tax cut. I know you may have heard that Dominion has given out couple $100 million to their customers. Well, if you take a couple $100 million and divide it by the number of customers they have, everybody gets about $58. So it sounds a whole lot more than it is. But I have to let you know that we don't pay the federal tax that the investor owns and the cooperatives pay that are getting a big cut. So we don't have that opportunity to pass on any of those savings. Through our VMEA discussions with Dominion to see what effect that will have on our wholesale rate, we've been told that we should see some sort of an adjustment. We just don't know what that is, and that the way their FERC accounting works, we won't see it till probably mid-year 2019. But you all will know what that is as soon as I know. Just to give you an idea of the size of our department now, we have 18 approved positions. Of course, the director, at least for tonight, administrative assistant, we have an engineering services superintendent. Under him works 3 electric system technicians. The electric system technicians are our meter readers, our cable locators, our purchasing people, warehousing people, and whatever else we can come up for them to do. Then we have a line superintendent, and there's supposed to be 11 positions under him, 4 first class line technicians, 4 second class, and 3 line tech apprentices. And as you see, we have 1 first class position vacant and 3 of the second class positions that are vacant. Just a quick update on what our equipment is. We currently have the following equipment. We've got 2 large bucket trucks, 60-foot reach. We have 1 small bucket truck, a 48-foot reach, 2 old digger trucks, a small 1-ton dump body truck, a small 1-ton flatbed body with a crane, 4 pickups, 2 small Ford Exploders, a backhoe and a trencher. Just as the manager was alluding to, this is information of our engineering services work orders. Beginning in July, we did not have the work order system online prior to that date, and we really didn't track other than on a spreadsheet if somebody remembered to write it on the spreadsheet. But just real quickly, we had 367 orders to turn on electric, 322 to turn off, 396 service transfers, 176 check readings, 7 remove electric from the premises, it's usually related to a demolition permit, 15 change meters, 137 disconnects for non-payment, 81 reconnects, 10 disconnects for bad check, 18 theft of service investigations, and 427 misutility locates. And on the bottom there, I added that a little over 50 customers requested meter inspections and rereads in February of this year.
One footnote, we obviously hadn't gotten to July of 2018, so our crack director and I both missed it. The date on that last slide should have been
Oh, yeah.
July
Sorry.
1 of 17 to 18.
Did
Thank
it
you.
again.
I thought I was the only one that didn't understand that. But you know, we don't ask questions.
Line department work orders, we've connected, once again, that should be July 2017 and not 2018. 1 600 amp commercial service, 4 200 amp residential services. Trouble calls, we spent 40 regular working hours, 40 calls during regular working hours, 36 after hours. And the line department was assisting on 237 of the missed utility locates. We did 92 street light repairs, 29 calls for miscellaneous customer service, 16 calls to remove tree limb from the line, and 3 assisted services department was cut off, so we had to cut off at the street. And that's continued on the next page. We had 138 calls for traffic signal malfunction, 3 demolition permits, 32 pole change-outs for regular maintenance work, 3 pole change-out for auto accidents. We installed 3 new street lights. We changed out the malfunctioning street lights. 12 of those we changed out to the LED. Just as a footnote to the street lighting, the city has a total of 1,386 street lights and security lights. And as of this date, we have approximately 981 that remain to be changed out to LED. Just a quick note of some in-kind services that we've worked on since for the fiscal year. Repaired lighting at the fairgrounds. This is Parks and Rec contractor locating a bad pool control cable. Assist Public Works with tree removal, replace flagpole pulley assembly at Armory Park Field. Assisted with the repair and install of speakers at Armory Field. Install Christmas decorations at Barrett's Landing and add lights to the tree at Barrett's Landing. And of course, assisted Public Works installing and lighting the Christmas tree at Meadow Lane Park. Just a quick idea of what FY19 budget looks like as of today. Subject to change by the time we get to June, of course. We have 1.8 million in operating, 673,000 in capital, 9.69 million in energy costs, 1.05 million in fuel adjustment charges, and our 1.43 million transfer to the general fund, another 423,000 transferred to the general fund for services, another 59,000 transferred to the general fund for pilot. That's payment in lieu of taxes, if you were curious. Increase to lease payments for vehicles, and 253,000 in debt service, up slightly from the 15,405,000 FY18 budget. It's up to 15,560,000 for FY19. Like I said, as that right now is proposed, we have not met with City Council for discussion on that matter yet, and also we're still waiting for the final costs for what our wholesale power costs will be. Also included, just real quick, is the capital improvement plan. Proposed for FY19 miscellaneous system improvements is 200,000. A digger truck replacement, unit number 8, is 230,000. Automated metering infrastructure is 1.5 million. LED street light project, 500,000. Actually, it should be less than that. SCADA replacement, 280,000, and replace unit 9 bucket truck for 150,000. And that's my presentation. I welcome your questions.
Now's the time.
Okay. Anybody else got some? I can wait. Okay, and Tommy too, because I got a bunch of them. First, I would like to ask, because it's hard to, we may need to go back to some of these slides in order for me to be able to understand your answers to the questions.
Okay.
The first one I have concern with is the slide that is telling about the kilowatt per hours that were purchased and sold, right there, that's the one. What is a kilowatt per hour rate that we are paying? I mean, first paying and then charging.
Well, first, it's not kilowatt per hour, it's kilowatt hour.
Kilowatt hour,
Right.
okay.
Kilowatt hour is 1,000 watts per hour.
Okay, what is, does that have, or what is the monetary value of a kilowatt hour?
A kilowatt hour that we pay to VEMA and SEPA as of an average for the fiscal year is, you want it with fuel charge or without?
Again, without,
Okay. Average is energy only is 6.166 cents.
okay, so we have to do some multiplying to find out. I noticed, and I'm glad we got some accountants up here, when you subtract what, from the 89,000, the 84,000, you come up with, the number I come up, 5,320,347. Now, what does that number, which is subtracting the purchase from the build, or the build from the purchase, what is the value of that number?
Well, if you take the difference and multiply it by 7.0329 cents, that's the amount of system losses we've had for the
No,
year
I'm
so
not talking about the system losses. Okay, so you lost,
Well, if I have bought the power, Mr. McLemore, and I haven't billed it to anybody, Mr. McLemore, that means I've lost it.
but we purchased it, Mr. Bly.
That's right, we did.
Okay, we purchased it, but we didn't use it.
Right.
Is
we
that right,
can't
Mr.
keep
Bly?
it in the bucket.
Okay, so the city is purchasing electricity that we are not using. And how much is that worth value?
I don't have that calculation, whatever your
add that
5
for me?
million is times 7 cents. About 350,000.
Maybe
I
my
would say.
colleague, he's an accountant, he's gonna try and figure that out for us.
What's the number, 7 what?
I'm sorry,
What's the number, 7 what?
7.0329 cents.
And while he's adding that, it says approximately 6.3% of energy purchased is system losses and not recovered.
Correct.
What justify, why would we purchase electricity that we're not going to use, or what is the justification for the loss?
Well, I do have to adjust that statement a little bit in that 142,000 kilowatt hours per year are used to light the street lights, which we don't meter. The rest of it is system losses. System losses occur in every electric utility in the world. If you look at the Department of Energy, EIA website, they will explain to you that the typical system losses for an electric utility is 5%. System losses are every time we try to push electrons through a wire, we lose some system losses. Every time we try to energize the core in a transformer, it costs us money. That's just to energize the transformer. That's before any power flows through it. We have same thing with an electric meter. Just to energize the meter, it costs us money. Plus, I'll add on to that the theft of services, the kilowatt hours that people have stolen from us that we've been unable to recover the money for.
Or we steal from the people.
What is that?
Excuse me?
What I mean is because the people are paying for this electricity, or, hold it, wait a minute, is anyone charged for the electricity that is purchased that is lost? Who pays for that?
The city does.
The city pays for it.
Power and Light Department pays for that.
Okay, so
As
you
can
have,
see right there in front of you.
you mean
We did
receive
not
rate?
bill for that.
I don't understand what you say, we're not billed for it.
We do not bill for
You
loss.
do not bill the customer, so the city just eats that loss.
That's correct.
What did you come up with the number?
Does $350,000 sound
That's
about
what
right?
But that's.
So
then-
$350,000, what, a year? That
But-
we
but that-
No,
just,
that's only for 8 months.
for 8 months, we eat 350? And you said that the average, if you check across the country, people have 5% loss. Is there a reason why we're having 6% loss?
Well, he just mentioned the street lights, 142,000.
So the other places don't have those?
Don't know if it's
That's
calculated in their
a
losses.
typical utility. Franklin is not a typical utility.
And that's the average.
Depends
So
on
that
the
means
wire size, depends on the loading of the wire size, causes different resistance, causes you to lose more power.
And the average means there were people with higher than that and people with lower than that, and the average was 5%. So
When I first came here, our system losses was closer to 7%. Before this winter, our system losses were about 4%.
So,
I assume that by the end of this fiscal year, for the entire year, it'll be closer to 4%.
so when you came here, we should have been losing something like maybe 500,000 every 8 months.
Maybe.
Doesn't sound very economically profitable to spend that kind of money to lose. Anyhow, I guess as long as we're making enough profit to justify that sort of a loss, it must be worth it. Can we go over to the work order page?
For engineering services.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
line-
the one, that one's fine to start with. You have up there, I'm a little confused, you got turn on electricity, turn off electric, and then you go down to disconnect for non-payments. What is the difference between disconnect for non-payments and turn off electricity?
Well, this new work order system we have is not perfect. It's only as good as those, that information that's put into it. Some of these work order codes overlap, but turn on electric could be for a service that had been disconnected for non-payment. It could have been disconnected because the customer moved out and wanted it disconnected.
Okay, I can accept that, but that's also to say then these numbers can't reflect reality because there's no way of knowing from what you just said. They don't, the new system has them confused.
Well, no, he didn't say that. He said they're inclusive. So if you turn anything off, that could be in that number. But
Okay,
we
so why are they
specifically break
separate?
out the
Well, Randy,
disconnects for non-payment.
why are
because
they
that is a
separate
different-
then?
I just told you. That
No.
we specifically break out the disconnects for non-payment and the reconnects for non-payment because those are calculated separately and kept up with.
So you had
Listen, you're getting into your time now as far as.
Well,
ask-
somebody else
well,
asked some
No, well,
questions.
just go ahead and ask your questions.
I asked a question, he keeps interrupting with his answers instead of electric mine.
Well, some
And
of this
then-
goes over
there
to
you
billing.
go.
Some of it goes over to billing, not necessarily the power and light department in the field.
I think my questions are a lot shorter than these answers. Let's jump on down because I'm not happy with the answers. The change meters, we changed out 15 meters. Customers requested 50 inspections. Let's jump over, you said something about the fairgrounds. You went to work out on the fairgrounds. Is that outside the city?
It's Franklin, Southampton.
Are we responsible for that? And do
We
do it?
serve in two counties and in Suffolk and in the city of Franklin. We don't serve just
Are
in the
we
city limits.
responsible for the electricity at the fairgrounds?
That-
Yes or no?
That is part of the in-kind services that we provide to the fairgrounds.
So the answer
property.
is yes. We are responsible for the electricity at the
For the
fairgrounds.
facilities, not for the electricity itself,
But we are responsible for the upkeep.
of the lighting, yes.
And do we get compensated in any way
No,
for
sir,
that?
that's our in-kind services to the Fair Board.
For what? For
our-
allowing us to use
Our share
it?
of costs to have the fairgrounds.
All right, the fiscal year 19 budget. Once again, we have operating capital energy confusions. The transfers to the general fund, you have three general fund figures here. You have the transfer to the general fund for 1.4 million. Then you have the transfer to general fund for services, 400,000. And then you have a transfer to the general fund for pilot, 59,000. What is the pilot?
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay, so That is
Taxes such
instead
as
of-
real estate,
for our electric building, the buildings
Correct,
that you're in,
and
stuff
even
like
all
that.
the lines.
And what's
We-
the transfer to general fund for services?
General fund for services pays for the heating and air conditioning and lighting in this building, the city manager and all city employees that work in this building, their salary, including city council's salary.
So and I would assume yours is in there somewhere too.
No, mine's
No,
not.
no,
Yours
his
is in
his
operating?
department, yes.
Operating, okay. Because I didn't ask
Yeah,
where our money comes from.
all funds share in the cost of the general administration of the
I
city.
guess where I'm going to is, how come those three figures aren't into one figure for transfer to the general fund?
Because they're separate charges.
They're separate collections.
In accounting, we do cost accounting, fund accounting. The funds do not contribute to, directly to a lot of services that support the operation of the department. And that's where you come up with a calculation. We have that done by a third-party independent every year to give us our cost accounting numbers for what the general services that are provided through finance, through administration and so forth to the department. The pilot is an industry common thing
Go back, please.
that all of the other utilities pay to governmental entities, so it's a comparative cost for the property that the department has that's located within the city, that we receive a payment in lieu of taxes. And then of course, the general fund transfer you're very familiar with is established by the city budget annually and is a direct transfer.
Okay, you just talked about these funds are used in operation, services and different things, but yet we have a separate line item for operations. Is that simply payroll?
No.
So operating, we are using part of the general fund transfer, you say, for operations, such as
No,
paying.
those
City
are
Hall
operations
operations.
outside of the fund, outside of the electric fund.
Let me clarify, because there was two different statements made. The services is not for this building. The services, as I understand it, is for the people providing services to the electric fund who don't have them. Like, they don't have a billing department.
Yeah.
We do in this building. They don't have a collection department like we do in this building.
So they
We
pay
don't
us for
mail
that?
out their bills, we mail them out. So they are paying us back for those
Services.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and-
to the
and-
extent that Randy gets involved in the electric department, some part of his salary would go to
The
that.
city attorney, any entity that's not paid out of the operations of the department, as well said by Councilman Burgess, they share in the cost based on the amount of time and effort those departments apply to function in support of them. For example, if this was an independent utility like a Dominion, all of that overhead is within the entity. They're contracting, if you will, for services that they don't provide within the fund itself directly.
All right.
So-
Other questions from other people?
Yeah, I have some.
Go ahead.
Thank God.
Just real quick, how long does it take to turn off a service, turn on a service, and make a transfer? Are those just a switch, or does somebody physically go out?
We physically have to go to the property. And how long it takes, typically you can say an hour, depending on where it's located on our system. A transfer is nothing more than a reading, and that's how it should be done, instead of us having to go out and disconnect the meter because we got a work order to disconnect the service. Then we come back, and then that afternoon, we get an order to reconnect the service, so we go back out to the same place and plug the meter back in, when it should have been just a transfer reading, where we could have gone out one time, written down the reading, come back, and been done with it. But we're working on that part.
And this system will help us to identify those kinds
The
of things?
AMI of this system, oh, yeah,
Okay.
the work orders, once we get the codes done
But,
correct.
but as he just referred to, one of the capital projects is the more enhanced meter capabilities from the AMI meters. We'll be able to do some of that remotely and not have to go out.
You said you had 50 inspections of the meter reading this in February. I think that was right.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
50?
Mhm. Yes, sir.
What did you find at those 50 houses? Do you know?
Nothing.
No errors, no problems? Okay. I'm struggling just a little bit. I know there's a logical answer, but we have 11 people in the line department, and I know they do other things, but if I add up all the things that you did, it looked like it was 649, which is like 59 work orders per person per year. I know you're doing a lot more than that, so can you kind of help me?
Well, sure, if you look at the, first I correct you, it's only for 7
Oh,
months.
for 8 months, you're right, excuse me.
But as far as like the 32 pole changeouts for maintenance, that's just not 32 hours or 32 days.
Right.
Each pole could take us 3 to 4 days using everybody
Okay.
to change that pole out.
Okay.
The same thing, traffic signal malfunctions, that's typically not a big deal because usually they're just, signal is tripped and gone on flash. If we need the line crew to change out a video detector on it, then that takes a few hours.
How about the big things? Things that take more than just a 1 hour call. What are on that list? What would take a couple, 2 or 3 days?
Well, it's new services. We could take a week installing a new service depending on what it is. The pole change outs, like I say, sometimes we can take 3 or 4 days just on one pole. To change out a pole, we typically don't disconnect the service, which means we've got to kind of tip that service out the way so we can install the new pole and then transfer all that stuff while it's still energized. And that's something you can't do in an hour. It could take us a couple days project to do.
And you do a lot of pruning too.
I'm sorry.
Pruning your right of ways.
We've been doing a lot of tree trimming, yes.
All right, last two questions. I was going to ask what is the auto meter infrastructure, but we're going to hear about that. What's a SCADA replacement?
SCADA replacement is our supervisory control and data acquisition, which monitors all our delivery points. At this time, it also is tied, our existing unit is tied to our load control switches, which is a load management device that are installed on some of our customers' water heaters to allow us to control them times of peak load. We can turn them off and turn them on, which allows us to keep our peak load down. I mentioned this once before, not tonight, but the peak load that we had last year delegates what we pay for power next year. It's that sort of thing. So we try to monitor that the best we can. We try to lower voltages as much as we can so we stay within standards at the time of the system peak. The AMI, automated metering infrastructure, I believe the gentleman that addressed council earlier mentioned smart meter. Well, our meters are sort of smart. We just drive by and they send a signal with the reading, and that's all they do. The smart meters that he's speaking of allows us a whole lot more information, better allows us to operate our system. Like now I mentioned lowering the voltage. In order for us to lower the voltage to the maximum benefit on any circuit, we need to know what the voltage is on the very end of the line. We don't know that unless we physically go out and read it. And by the time we got around to all the farthest points from our system to know what the value should be, it'd be too late. We'd missed the peak and haven't saved any money. AMI system would automatically feed that information into the SCADA system and do those adjustments automatically. The same thing with the load control switches that are now served by our SCADA system. They would be turned over to the AMI system because the smart meters are allowing us to determine what the voltage is and amperage at each meter. To ask you what the SCADA really does, we monitor the voltage and current at each of our circuits. It allows us to control raise and lower voltages, as I said. When we're instance where we're changing out poles and doing it live, we put that circuit on what's called one-shot. It's non-reclosing. We do that from the office through our SCADA. That allows the linemen to work on the system safely, and should they accidentally make contact with the line's going to trip out instead of operate 3 times before it locks out. Our problem with the SCADA has gotten to the point, it's just like our meter reading system. It's got software that's no longer being supported. Our SCADA side, all the equipment in the substation is failing just due to its age. It's not allowing us to keep continued contact with our delivery points as we need it. And the equipment needed is only available from one source, and that's the manufacturer. And they're almost to the point that they're not supporting that equipment any longer. The new system would allow us to purchase, due to multi-speak, it's not manufacturer specific. It would allow us to, we could buy equipment from different manufacturers and it would still work and do the same thing, but a lot better than what we're doing now.
One last comment, just for information purposes, the 423,000, as I calculated, is at about 2.8% of our total budget. So it's not a big, it looks like a big number, but it's really not a big number.
For which?
The 400, the transfer to the general fund
Oh,
for
okay.
services.
Right. And that, I have that all in a graphical form that you'll be presented at budget time.
Okay.
I thought I was trying to put that in this presentation. I couldn't get it to fit.
Okay. Other questions?
Just a small one. When you have to replace poles and so forth due to accidents and stuff, is that reimbursed to the city by insurance?
Yes, we typically get a law enforcement report on that, and we hope that the driver is insured, and then we immediately calculate an invoice for that and send it to the insurance company. We don't collect on all of them, but we collect on a good share of them.
Others? Just for the edification of the people here and as well as watching, can you give us the Cliff Notes version of fuel adjustment, what it is and how it's added into that, please?
I'll try. All right. The way that Dominion does their accounting through FERC, they're required to, every June 1st, tell us what their projection of the cost to produce power that we buy. one part of that, and I can provide you those calculations. It's a FERC Form 7. It's about 100 pages of different stuff. Part of that is the cost of fuel to produce that power that they say this is what it's going to cost moving forward. Typically, that has not been enough. That budgeted figure that they give us June 1st has typically not been enough to cover the cost of fuel. So part of our power contract instituted this fuel adjustment charge, and that's not unique to VEMA. It's not unique to City of Franklin. I know all of this 15 other members of MEPAV also have some form of fuel adjustment charge. But it's basically a true-up of what the actual costs are compared to what they said they were going to be according to their FERC accounting. We have seen fuel charges as low as, well, I'll be presenting that to you at budget time too. We are projecting that it's going to go down. Right now, it's 0.00826 cents per kilowatt hour. Our projected costs as of January, it looked like it was going to go down to 0.00750 cents per kilowatt hour. What we heard from Dominion last week is that may not be the case because of January, the tail end of December and January, the cost of fuel, of course, went up. So the fuel adjustment charge is adjusted every April. So we'll know by next month for sure what that fuel adjustment charge will be to become effective April 1st, which you don't see. You'll see it for April usage, but it's not till you get the bill in May, which is for April usage.
Okay.
So
I
we're
know that's
hoping it stays
That's a
down.
difficult concept for some, but it's a true-up of what it actually costs them to
Right.
produce the energy they produce. Just a couple of questions from my part. During the December and January snow, how do we have any long-term outages as far as electrical
No.
service?
No, sir.
During the last wind event that we had,
We
do we
had-
have any
We had
long-term?
one outage that affected 162 people in the Delaware Road area. It lasted approximately 2 hours. Large tree limb came down and tore the line down.
Okay. So all in all, when we look at some of our competitors and we look at outages and how long they've had days and long hours without it, we've done pretty well on that. So thanks. I think congratulations are probably in order. You probably don't get a whole lot of thank yous, but
It's just by the grace of God, I think.
well, but we'll take that too, because it certainly helps the citizens not to have that. Any other questions, Mr.
Yes.
Bly?
The automated, on the capital improvements, you have the automated metering infrastructure, $1.5 million. Is that to put in the new smart meters?
Yes, sir. 70% of that cost is the cost of the meters.
Okay. And how much overlap should those smart meters, or is there any overlap in regards to the SCADA? As you were just, when you talked about smart meters, it was during his questions regarding SCADA. So my concern is how much of that smart meter is going to overlap with the SCADA replacement, because that's an additional $280,000.
No, I guess what I was saying is our existing SCADA is used to control our load management switches. Our load management switches are kind of like our electric meters. They're not smart meters, they're sort of smart meters. We pay right now for 2,000 load management switches. We give a customer $5 a month credit to allow us to have that device on their water heater. How many do we actually have on service? I can't tell you.
But won't the smart meter do that? Or will the smart meter be able
The
to?
smart meter will, at that point in time, become the communications to the new load management switch.
Okay.
That would be, for instance, I'm over here at the Restore one day, and something caught my eye sitting on the shelf, and it was one of our load management switches sitting on their shelf for sale for $5.
My last question is for Randy, because you like answering questions. This is directly from a citizen who sent it to me. How many people signed up for the payment plan? And how many will be cut off after the last day to sign up for the payment plan?
Again,
It's
he's
under
going to
the
review that
report.
in our,
Isn't this electric?
no, but he's reviewing that. If you read, again,
I read
if you would
everything in it. I read
continue
all
to
of it.
read what you get,
I
you
read
will
every
find,
line in
it's
in
a
that.
line in there that says he will give us an update on what's going on with the plan.
So you can't tell us how many people have been.
He's going to tell us during his update, which comes right after this. Okay?
Of the management report.
Yeah. Okay? Again, I encourage all of you, when you get information from the city manager, from the city attorney, or from whomever, that we read our stuff prior to coming.
You're
It does make
insinuating that
this
I didn't
much
read
easier.
it, and I did read it. I just got a question from a citizen,
Well-
so I thought I would ask it while we were talking about
Okay,
electricity.
Well, it's
So
going to
I
be
don't
reviewed.
appreciate your
It'll be
insinuation.
reviewed. It's no insinuation. All right, we'll move along. Mr. Bly, thank you so much. Thank you to your department for what you're doing. And maybe I think some of the answers Mr. McCurry had were answered, but I would certainly encourage him to come back and talk to city manager about this. Okay? Any other questions? Again, thank you, Mr. Bly. All right, the next item is the city manager's report. Mr. Martin.
Yes, the 2 or 3 items. Commissioner of Revenue and Treasurer, I mentioned in the agenda package, have completed the training prerequisite to the software conversion for real estate and personal property tax billing applications. I've got in there, their goal is to have go live with it the first week of April if all continues to progress nicely. I've also mentioned in there that we've begun to collect peer utility provider policy examples for budget billing options, as the council stated as a priority for us to try to finalize that plan to customers before July of 18. Just giving you a quick update there. Second item would require some council action if you're interested. The Hampton Roads Planning District Commission has asked each member community to consider authorizing a letter of opposition to offshore drilling, similar to the example I enclosed in your agenda package that was done by the HRPDC board. Vice Mayor Cheatham commented on this at the last council meeting, and if the council desires to take any action, I'll defer to Mr. Cheatham, Vice Mayor Cheatham, for any comments he wants to add, since he is your representative to that board.
But if you remember, what had taken place was the drilling offshore and the interference it will cause with the shipping lanes of ships coming into port, as well as to the functions of the Navy. Currently exempted from drilling is the waters off of Florida. The fear that we will lose carrier groups down there. I would recommend, and I would like to make a motion that we authorize a statement in opposition similar to what HRPDC has already written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same
Aye.
opportunity.
Abstain.
Aye.
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 And aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Martin, you're going to draft a letter for us to look? So, okay, thank you.
Okay, ready to move on?
Please.
All right, as I noted in the agenda, I'm collecting and preparing summary data on the actions taken by the council to provide relief in the form of a short-term payment plan for utility customers in response to the elevated utility bills sent in early February. for usage during the extremely cold weather period between December 21 of 17 and January 21 of 18. Tonight, I will offer you some updates on how that has transpired thus far. And for the next council meeting, I'll have more analysis similar to what we did on the January or the February billing for the March billing that customers have received in the last few days. Comparative data on how the billing amounts changed and how that period went. With regard to the payment plan, through today, close of business today, we had 226 customers to take advantage of the plan. That's roughly 4% of our total customer base for the billing period most recently completed. The total amount that they have asked for a payment plan on is for all services, water, sewer, solid waste, and electric, with obviously electric being the bulk of it. Totaled $82,203.11. On average, that's $363.73 of the average customer based on those totals. If you divide that by 7 months, that would be a payment of roughly $51.96 per month on average. And I'll try to answer any questions, but that's the information I have for you tonight on the payment plan, which we had a 30-day period in which customers could take advantage of that without penalty, and none of those customers will realize any penalties as long as they meet the terms of the payment plan going forward, which would involve them paying their regular bill plus the amount of the payment plan for each customer over the next 7 months. They don't have to go up to 7 months. Some asked about that. The payment plans were done on that calculation in most cases, but some may pay it off earlier. They indicated, because some of the amounts were pretty low, but obviously that's up to the customer. I'll try to answer any other questions about the payment plan if you have any.
But regardless of the amount, you gave them the opportunity to go 7 months if they wanted to go
Correct.
7
Yes, sir. That was
Okay,
the.
so that was their call whether to go or not go.
Yeah, whether they pay it off early is up to them.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Question?
well, but this is kind of a statement. I've been down to the City Hall dealing with a lot of the citizens as they try to work out some of these concerns. Joyce, your employee Joyce in the electric department is doing a great job. All of them are really working overtime. It was packed out there today. And I have found, and I hope that the council will consider making an action to address this. There are many people who caught the part about pay what your last portion was, and they would extend, or what your last bill, pay that amount, and then they would have arrangements on the last for 7 months or whatever following, but they didn't know they had to literally sign up for that program. So I had an elderly lady who came down and she paid what her last month's bill was, and had I not come and met with her with Joyce, she would have been expected to pay the remainder of her bill in one shot, because she didn't know she had to literally request to sign up for the payment program. So I hope that there may be some way that we can take in consideration for some of those people pertaining the same January bill that might throw them into a fix, that we might be able to offer the same thing to those customers that didn't know they had to sign up for the plan. They just paid their amount from last month, and now they think that they can break it down, but they didn't sign up for it, so they can't.
Well, if I could respond.
Sure.
Please.
I don't know the mechanics of that individual person, but if they came in and paid less than the full amount due, our staff would have told them that they have the ability to make. I heard them doing that. I sat in and listened to a number of the customers who were dealing with the staff, and I even had a couple call me, and that was one of the first things we said is to take advantage of the payment plan, you have to enter into a payment agreement. and for the balance due. I don't know if anybody missed that, but if they did, I feel pretty confident that the staff would have asked them, well, what are you going to do about the rest of it? But I don't know this particular individual's circumstance, and I'm glad you shared with them what they had to do to get involved. But I don't know if there could be somebody, but if somebody comes to us with that set of circumstances, we'll certainly look at it and consider how we can help them.
Good enough.
Okay. Any other? Mr. Martin, you have anything else?
Let's see, did mention in the report, I should note it, that the council had directed that we pursue getting someone to do an analysis of our equipment and billing. Mark Bly and I have already met with one such company, and they're going to be submitting as a proposal, and we anticipate having your feedback and that you requested at the March 26th meeting on the analysis of our equipment and billing operations, and look forward to presenting that.
Okay.
How could we get one when that's what I recommended when we talked about that, go to somebody, and I was told that we had to put out an RFP in order to talk to him.
No, that's not what we said. We said that what we would do is we may or may not need to put out an RFP. It depends on the amount, it depends on the contract and those things based on the Virginia state procurement process. We have to follow that. And you don't have to put everything out, but the question was,
I didn't think we did when I recommended that we talk to the people that worked with the
well,
school.
thinking and then
Yeah.
trying to
And when
to
I
get a
said that, you
definitive
said you
answer.
had to put out an RFP.
We said we may have to put out an RFP.
It's yet to be determined.
Yeah, and we still may, depending on the proposal, or that the initial proposal
I
and
just
the
hope we
cost.
move quickly.
We are trying to move very quickly on that. So, thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Martin?
No, sir. Well, I should mention, just make sure the council noticed in your upcoming items, there were a number of dates, and I hope you'll update your calendars for events that are upcoming and other deadlines so that you'll be up to speed. And it's in the agenda package right after the agenda. I'll answer any questions about them, but we've got a number of things that are coming up. In particular, we have the economic development arm of the city, Partners in Progress event in the morning. And then we have the VDOT US 58 Corridor study, just for the public's information. That will be tomorrow night at 5 to 7 p.m. at the Southampton County Office Complex with regard to the 58 Corridor study that is underway, that we're participating in along with Southampton County, Isle of Wight, and Suffolk.
Okay. All right, okay. That it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll go to council staff reports on boards and commissions. Anybody have anything? You got anything?
Well, I would like to point out a number of us were, okay, thank you. I would like to point out a number of us were present Saturday, and we witnessed the unveiling of the marker of Mrs. Morton. And that was a good historical event. And our councilwoman did an excellent greeting.
You have anything back? Okay. Anybody have anything? Okay, I think you see on here that we do have a meeting tomorrow morning. I think
Yes.
Partners in Progress. I think I'm not sure if people on the council have signed up to go or not, but if not, we'll be there first thing tomorrow morning. So I think that's about it.
Mr. Rebel, can I
Okay.
make one announcement?
Please.
I'd like to announce that the Franklin High School robotics team came in first place at their competition that they had in Richmond, I believe. They've changed it around a little bit. They don't do the big regional tournament right up at the beginning. These are smaller ones, and but they came in first, and they also got the Quality Robot Award for having the best design, an operating robot. So they're doing well, and if they can keep on going like that, they have a good chance of going to Detroit to the international competition.
Well, good, and please congratulate the team sponsors for that. That's great, and the team. That's wonderful, good news.
Mr. Mayor,
And
before you wrap up, I just want to say, I'll be having our monthly Ward 3 meeting on the 24th at the Franklin Library. If
Okay.
any citizens from Ward 3 would like to come out.
Okay. All right, and again, congratulations to the Morton family, a well-deserved honor for Miss Morton. And again, I would echo what Councilman Johnson said. Councilwoman Hilliard did a wonderful job, an excellent job in welcoming everyone that was there and really kicking it off very nicely. So thank you for doing that for us. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, now I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I move that the Franklin City Council meeting in closed section to discuss appointments to boards and commissions and to discuss a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community, and consultation with the city attorney regarding legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice from the city attorney pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1, 5, and 8.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays
Aye.
have the same opportunity.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Motion carries. We'll be going into closed session. Again, thank you all for coming out. Please be careful on your way home.